Live from the Washington, D.C. area, it's the Inside Scoop. All the news that our viewers want to know. Now, here's the host.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Deborah Woolen, and I'm your host this evening for Inside Scoop. I was a junior in high school when I first read one of Alice Walker's less well-known than The Color Purple, but just as riveting a book called Possessing the Secret of Joy. I remember specifically one part that stuck out to me was the story of Tashi. Tashi was one of the young ladies in The Color Purple who escaped to Africa, specifically within the book Possessing the Secret of Joy. She talked about something that she experienced that we now know as female genital mutilation. I remember reading that story and imagining, as a 16-year-old myself, imagining the horror of that experience. Tonight we have with us Angela Peabody, who is the executive director and founder of the Global Woman Peace Foundation. And one of the tasks that is very close and near and dear to this organization is dismantling female genital mutilation. So we're going to talk about that. We are also, later on in the segment, we're going to have a conversation with the survivor of this procedure. So let's go ahead and get started. Angela, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Absolutely. I know we were talking before the show started, and there's just so much to discuss. But first, introduce yourself to our audience. What is your background, and how did you come to founding this organization?
Well, oddly enough, my background is broadcasting, is broadcast journalism, and that's what I did in Liberia. That's what I practiced until the coup d'etat in Liberia many years ago, and I immigrated here to the U.S. So, and then about 13 years ago, like you said, I was reading Waris Diary's book, Desert Flower, and I read about her experience with FGM, and I started connecting the dots because I'm from a FGM practicing country, Liberia, and they called it female circumcision at the time when I was growing up, and so I got interested, and I started connecting the dots and realized that female circumcision is the same as FGM, and I just became passionate about it and pursued it.
Sure. Words are so important to make sure that people understand that female circumcision is not the same as male circumcision, but the correct name is female genital mutilation, because that is exactly what it is. And we're going to get into exactly what that procedure is in a little bit. So you found out about this procedure, you read the book. So what made you want to found this particular organization?
Well, when I read Waris's book, I got in touch with her. I wanted to interview her. And I flew to London and interviewed her. And when I heard her story, I just became passionate about it, and I wanted to know more. So when I wrote the article for a magazine at the time, I just couldn't stop thinking. I was almost obsessed with it, and my son said to me, "Well, you're so passionate about this. Why don't you start your own organization?" Because before then, I wanted to interview more people like Waris, and I was writing articles about it, and they said, "You can do more if you start your own organization." And so I hesitated at first because I didn't want to start a nonprofit organization. I just wanted to be a broadcaster, a journalist. That's what I was. And eventually I came to terms with it, and I decided to go for it.
Absolutely.
Here I am.
Yes. So you probably found that not that many people knew about it. As I mentioned, when I first read Possessing the Secret of Joy by Alice Walker, I had no idea that this procedure was actually happening all around the world. And then just from the description that Alice wrote, I was horrified. But just for our audience, what is female genital mutilation from a procedural perspective?
It is, according to the World Health Organization, it is the intentional removal of either all or part of the external female genitalia, and it's for no medical reason whatsoever. Regardless of what people might say, some might say it has no medical reason to do it. Unlike, I'm glad you brought up male circumcision. Unlike male circumcision, there is a medical reason. There is none for the female genitalia.
So when we're talking removal of part or all of the female genitalia, we're talking about the clitoris, we're talking about the outer labia, we're talking about the inner labia. So the clitoris,
the pubis, the vaginal opening, it depends on the type, because they have 4 types. So what World Health Organization defines as type 1 is the clitoridectomy, which is very common, and in Egypt, especially where it originated. And then type 2 is the excision. So type 1, the clitoridectomy, is when they remove either only the hood or the entire clitoris. And then type 3, the excision, is where they remove the entire clitoris, and they remove the labia minora, which is referred to as the small lips. And then type 3 is the most drastic of all, even though I believe all of them are drastic. But type 3 is the infibulation, where they perform clitoridectomy and excision, and then the whatever is left, whatever skin is left, because in type 3 they remove both labia. And whatever skin is left, they pull it together and they stitch it up, leaving only a tiny opening to accommodate urination and later menstruation. But that opening is less than the size of my thumbnail.
Goodness. So we're talking, so this is a major surgical procedure in a highly sensitive area. Describe, is there any anesthesia? What tools are being used?
In most places in the world where they perform it, no anesthesia is used. The girl suffers all the trauma of pain. It's done in a non-clinical environment. It's done mostly on the ground, and she's restrained and she's fighting, and she's held down, and it's forcibly done to her.
Gosh.
So you're leaving her with not only the pain, the physical pain, but you're also leaving her with a lifetime of psychological pain.
And the tools that are used?
Unsterilized in most cases.
Is it metal, plastic?
Razor blades. One girl describes it as being a sawed-off blade. Old knives. One cutter can use the same blade on numerous of girls in a day's time. So you're looking at the risk of different diseases being transferred from one girl to the other.
And this is something that's happening today.
it's happening today. We're not talking about something that happened in the 18 or 1700s. We're talking about, in fact, FGM is over 5,000 years old. It predates religion. It predates the three major religions: Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. So when people claim that it's a religious practice and they are doing it because of their religion, that is not true, because it started prior to religion.
So there is no medical basis for this. No. There is no religious basis for this. What is the justification?
Control. I remember my older son asking me when I got so involved with this, "Why do they do it, Mom?" And I said, I didn't know how to get into the whole explanation to him. So I just said, control. They want to control the woman's body. And that is the only logical explanation to it.
Wow.
They want to curb, they want to make sure that they control her sexuality, so that she will remain a virgin when she's married, when she gets married, and even after she's married, they still want to make sure that she doesn't stray or step out.
Gosh. So this horrific procedure that is not medically based, that has no religious basis, that is a medical health hazard for all intents and purposes, it is a group of people forcing this upon a young girl. Before the show started, you were saying that some girls as young as 9 years old have to experience this?
Oh, younger than that. It gets younger as time goes on. The most popular age range used to be between 5. For example, Waris, whom I mentioned that I interviewed the first time, she was 5 years old. So 5 to 15 used to be the most popular age range. But when they realized that women such as your next guest started coming out and speaking about it, about their experiences, they wisened up and started actually performing it at a much younger age, like when they are infant.
Wow. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please make sure you don't go anywhere. When we come back for segment 2, we're actually going to speak with a survivor of female genital mutilation. Please make sure you don't go anywhere. Come back and join us. I can't hear the music.
Nice going, Spencer! I can't believe we broke Old Man Hennessy's window.
Correction, dude. You broke. I just threw the ball.
This is really bad. What are we gonna do?
We?
Go to the door, ask for the ball back.
Are you serious?
It's my ball, Myrtleback.
You're so dead. I'd run away.
Yeah, to Uruguay.
Kiss your life goodbye. Sorry.
Let's go.
Dad.
See ya, dude. See ya. You never mean you're well.
Nice life. Some friends you are. Hi. Tell him it was an accident, and we can fix the window. Come on. I'll come with you.
Loyalty. Pass it on.
You go first.
A message from the Foundation for a Better Life.
One day these rats were playing in the woods. Wanted some matches and that's no good. Listen to smoke before you give it a try.
Only you.
Don't play with matches. Don't play with fire. Cause there's nothing very funny about rigged out life. Nothing very nice. Holy smile. So if a gorgeous force is what you desire, don't play with matches. Don't play with fire.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Fire.
Awkward. I'm the awkward silence. You try to avoid me, then there I am again.
But an awkward silence can be a great thing.
Like Kelly here is about to demonstrate.
You haven't really been yourself lately.
Are you okay?
Find out how you can help a friend with their mental health at seizetheawkward.org.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Thank you so much for joining us for Inside Scoop. So during our previous segment, we were speaking with Angela Peabody, the executive director and founder of the Global Woman Peace Foundation. And we were talking about the horrific procedure called female genital mutilation. Well, tonight, during this segment, we have with us a survivor of FGM, and her name is F.A. Cole, and she's here to share her experience with us. F.A., thank you so much for joining us.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I couldn't imagine what you've experienced. I just know that you are a survivor. I know that you have a pretty significant following on YouTube. So why don't you just share with our audience your experience?
Right. Surviving FGM. Oh boy, how much do I have? How many minutes?
13 minutes.
13 minutes. All right. So it happened to me 39 years ago. It happened when I was 11. And usually when people talk about FGM, the people that are listening think that, oh, their mother must have done it to them, or whomever. But for me, my mom is not a survivor of FGM. She's from the Creole tribe. First of all, I'm from Sierra Leone, West Africa. Okay. And so the Creoles in Sierra Leone do not undergo FGM. But because my father was with somebody else at the time, who was my stepmom, she was the one who instigated the whole thing. It wasn't my father's idea either. It was this woman that to whom he was married. It was her idea. So at age 11, we were told that, I was 11 and my oldest sister was 13 at the time, that we were going somewhere to be made into women. That's what they tell these girls. And so they said in Sierra Leone, it's called the Bundo Society. In different parts of the world where it's practiced, they call it different things. But in my country, it's called, my country of birth, it's called the Bundo Society. So at age 11, we were told, I believe we protested. But for me, the minute I heard that we get presents when we come out, that's all I needed to know. But speaking with my oldest sister, she said that we did ask that we did protest, that we didn't want to go through it, but you're a child back in, where we come from. Nobody listens to children. You don't have a voice if you're a child. So we were taken to this place. It's called Bayama, and it's inside the city, but it was a secluded area where we were taken, and we were greeted by about a dozen women or so. Most of them we didn't know. We've never met them. And so when we got there, they were singing, and also the thing is, when you undergo FGM, it's not free. These cutters get paid money, depending on how affluent your family is, your economic background. If you come from a very wealthy family, you pay more. So let's say a minimum of $50 US. That's a lot of money for people who have nothing else to do but to torture young girls. And also they pay in expensive African fabric, expensive wine. And so before we got there, they had already been drinking. And the other thing that most people don't talk about is that the demonic aspect of it, me being a Christian, a follower of Christ, I always talk about it being a demonic practice, and it does not only affect you, the girl, sexually, physically, emotionally, it also affects you spiritually. And some of the survivors that I also mentor, when I share my story, they always say, oh my gosh, that also happens to me. Like, you dream you're married to a demon, and because when you go through that, they also offer one of the girls as the wife to the gods, and so you become married to something that you had no, it wasn't even your idea, and so for the rest of your life, you haunted by this thing. And so we got there and we were greeted by those women, and long story short, my sister went first, and we were told to take off our clothes, and we sat under the tree, and they wanted me not to look back so that I would know what was happening to my sister. And then when she came back, all I saw that she was covered in blood. And then they took me, but before they could take me to what I call the bed of death, they blindfolded me and they gagged me. No, they blindfolded me and they tied my hands behind my back and they led me to the ground. Like Miss Angela said, it's done on the ground. And so one of the women who was the cutter sat on my chest. And I don't know, I think it was 4 women, 2 on the left, 2 on the right. They spread my legs wide open and they pinned me down and they handed her the razor that was used on my sister because they used the same razor, the same tool. And as she began to amputate my clitoris, I began to, because the shock, I didn't know what was going to happen while we were there. We know what the bundle society is about, but we don't know what really happened when we're there. So as she began to cut, I began to scream because the shock and the pain, it was, I have never experienced that kind of pain. I'm a survivor of rape, child sexual molestation, but the pain of female genital mutilation cannot be compared to, and when I had my son, I had an episiotomy, no anesthesia. So this pain cannot be compared to that. And so I began to fight, and I remember pulling myself forward and I beat the person in her bum. That's how I knew she was naked. And thereafter they gagged me. And afterwards they told me to stand up and I was covered in blood. I think that was when my blood phobia started. And so we sat down under the tree, my sister and I. Nobody said anything to us up to this day. They didn't tell us what was done to us. They just told us that we were going there to be made into women. And they didn't even teach us anything about womanhood. So it's just torture. And the sad part of it is your parents pay for you to get tortured, because they don't do it for free. They pay these women and then you go there and they do that to you.
F.A., I am holding back tears for you to have to experience something like that. I'm also humbled at your courage, not only for surviving this and holding on to your faith, but you even said that you mentor other women that have survived this. So what is your work? I know we only have 6 minutes left, but whatever people can, survivors, if someone is looking at this, what can they do to contact you? How would you encourage someone to what would you say to someone?
There's a life after FGM. There can be a beautiful life after FGM, and I am proof that there can be a beautiful life after FGM. First of all, you need counseling. Coming from countries in Africa, we don't believe in counseling. When we hear therapy, we think, oh, it's for somebody crazy, but no. You went through FGM, something happened to you, you lost your mind. You may not notice or realize it until you start talking to other survivors. That's when the light bulb goes on and you were like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. So seek counseling if you can. And that's, okay, maybe I should give that. But seek counseling if you can. Contact Global Women Peace Foundation. They have a doctor on, as on their team that actually mentors, counsels women. I have my videos out there when I did my surgery. Oh, the best part, So I said that there is always a silver lining and there's life after FGM, a beautiful life. And I remember in 2017, it will be 6 years this month, I had clitoral restorative surgery. I got my clitoris back and I have been enjoying her to the fullest. And I always say my husband is the beneficiary of my surgery. So thanks to Global Women Peace Foundation, I was reunited with my clitoris because they took her away from me before I could even find out what God created it for. And I remember Dr. Bowers after my surgery, I was watching telly and they saw people kiss. You watch it all the time, and I felt sensation down there that I had never felt before. And I picked up my phone, I texted Dr. Bowers, I said, Dr. Bowers, this is what just happened. And she smiled, she said, Frances, that's the clitoris. That's what it's supposed to do. And then I got angry all over again because they took that away from me. But I just want to let women who've gone through FGM know that there can be life after FGM. The surgery is not for everyone. I didn't do the surgery because of sexual pleasure. I did it because when I underwent female genital mutilation, even though I was whole, I wasn't complete. But after the surgery, not only do I feel whole, I feel complete. Like when I look at you, you didn't go through FGM. I now can say that we're equals because I now have my clitoris back. And so find somebody that can listen. Whatever you discuss with me as a survivor stays with us until you talk about it with somebody else. And there are a few women who've actually done the surgery because of the videos that I made. And they're so appreciative, but the only problem I have with them is talk about it, because it cannot just be from one person. The more we talk about the surgery, I'm a big advocate for the surgery. The more we talk about it, the more other women who actually are willing, who want it, can go through it. And right now, somebody just reached out to me. They want to get it done in France. And that's the other thing, my vagina. The vagina is so powerful. Mine took me to Paris free of charge. I didn't have to pay anything because of the power of the vagina. So she will be going to Paris to get the surgery done. And I'm really excited for her.
Absolutely. What would you tell a parent who is considering this, or someone in the same situation as your father was? Someone is pressuring him or her to do this and they're not quite sure. What would you tell them?
I would say, please don't. You can talk to the girl, your daughter, about FGM if it's part of your culture. Do not only tell them that when they come back, they get presents, because that's how they get us. And for me, somebody once likened FGM to prostitution. You pay to get us go through FGM, and then when we come out, we get money, but then you take the money from us. So it's like you're pimping me to be prostituted, and then when I come back, you take the money from me. So sit your daughter down, give her the truth about FGM, that there's nothing good about female genital mutilation. Let her know the culture. And if she decides she wants to do it when she's in her 20s or 30s, let her go ahead and do it, but at least she knows the truth behind the FGM.
Just out of curiosity, your sister, how did she cope?
She holds stuff inside. The only time we talked about it was when I wrote my book, because I gave it to her to read, and it's something painful that people really don't want to talk about. Unlike me, I can talk about my vagina to anybody who would listen. But I think she wrote her dissertation in college about the procedure. Wow. Yeah, it was after I wrote my book that she talked to me about it, but everybody deals with it their own way.
What's the name of your book?
It's called Distant Sunrise, The Strength in Her Pain to Forgive.
And how can people order it?
They can order it from me. Just send me an email, frances@ethico.org, or it's on Amazon. But I think that people are selling my book on Amazon for $35. If it's $35, it's not me selling it. It's $13. So.
Okay. I want to make sure people get it. The name of your book again is what?
Distant Sunrise, The Strength in Her Pain to Forgive.
Okay, by F.A. Cole.
Yes.
Wow. I am floored by your courage and your strength. I think oftentimes you hear Black women say that they don't like to hear the phrase strong Black woman, because it makes it seem like we can only be strong. But I think your life and your example and your survival is a perfect picture of that we can be strong and soft at the same time. We can hate what's wrong, but we can love what's right at the same time. We can hate our oppressor, but love ourselves at the same time. Please make sure you come back as we continue our conversation with Angela Peabody. We'll be right back.
Every day across America, excess food is gathered by a network of good people at local food banks, giving hope to millions of children who struggle with hunger. They've earned their wings, and you can too. Together, we can solve child hunger. Support Feeding America and your local food bank at feedingamerica.org.
Hi, I'm Josh Temple. You might have seen me on TV where I help folks turn their houses into dream homes. But forget construction. Parenting is the toughest job there is. So when you need help or advice, turn to the parenting experts at Boys Town.
I was afraid of that.
Well, guess it's time to get you fixed.
Your pets will start fooling around sooner than you think.
Go on, get out of here!
Accidental litters lead to millions killed in shelters each year. Help prevent more. Fix at month 4.
Food. It nourishes, brings us together, and adds flavor to life. That's why it's important to wash hands, surfaces, and fresh produce. Keep raw meat, poultry, and seafood separate from ready-to-eat foods like fruits and vegetables. And cook to proper temperatures using a food thermometer. Enjoy! And refrigerate leftovers within 2 hours. For more tips on safely preparing foods, visit homefoodsafety.org.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Angela, thank you so much for coming back. So we just finished our conversation with F.A. Cole. Oh my gosh, what a riveting testimony. She was just everything that you think about when you think about a survivor, but also it really highlighted the work that you're doing and the importance of the work that you're doing. So we talked about the procedure, we talked about the cultural implications and the history behind it, but bringing it to today, you've done some policy work in this area. So talk to us about that.
Yes, well, the first policy work I did was with my organization was in Virginia, because that's where the organization is located. And doing the work, it always bothered me the fact that Virginia did not have an anti-FGM law. And it was one of the states at the time. There were only 23 states that had state laws against FGM. And then of course there was the federal law that was passed in 1996. So I decided to pursue getting a law passed in Virginia, and I worked with a state senator, who was willing to go to all lengths to get it done. And in 2017, we went to Richmond. We testified in front of the Senate committee, and it was tough just sitting there listening to these senators debate whether they should pass this law or not. But we were successful. The problem was they could only pass, that's when I learned that it costs money, a lot of money, to pass a law in the state, because it costs $50,000 to pass the law, and they could only afford to pass a misdemeanor law at the time. And I knew the mentality of the people who practice this thing. A misdemeanor is a slap on the wrist, and they would just pay the fine and continue doing it. So the senator promised me, he said, if you work with me and we get the misdemeanor passed, then next year I will push for it to be included in the budget so we can increase it to a felony. And so I agreed to that. I said, okay, let's go with the misdemeanor, because a law is better than nothing at all. So sure enough, he kept his promise, and in 2018, we found ourselves back to Richmond, testifying to convince the Senate that we needed we needed a harsher penalty. And I told them, I said, we need something, not that I want to see parents going to jail for having their daughters cut, but if we have a harsh deterrent, a harsh penalty, it's going to be a better deterrent for them to think twice before they do it. So we went along with that, and fortunately, again, we were successful in 2018, and today, Virginia, I'm proud to say that the state of Virginia has one of the harshest penalty laws against FGM. It carries a Class 2 felony, 25 to life imprisonment, plus or a $100,000 fine.
Wow. Do you remember the name of the senator that helped you with that?
Yes, Senator Richard Black.
Okay, shout out to Senator Black for all of your work.
Yes, he's retired now.
Okay.
And then just before he retired, he contacted me and he said, I have 8 granddaughters, and every time I think about FGM, I think about my granddaughters. He said, so I want to do one more thing before I retire. he said, I want to pass an educational law, and I want you to help me lead this. And so in 2019, we found ourselves going to Richmond again, and we were successful in passing an educational law where it's mandated that all public schools, middle and high school students must learn about FGM. It must be included in the family life education curriculum.
Wow, and is that currently being implemented?
Oh yes,
Wow.
it was not in the beginning,
Sure.
and I just kept pushing and contacting schools individually and reminding them this is a mandate, you have to do it. And the problem there was that the teachers knew nothing about it, so they too had to be educated. So we started a training program for teachers and school nurses and school counselors on FGM so that they would be able to teach it to the students.
So for those that are thinking, okay, this is not a Virginia problem. This is not a Virginia problem. This is a Kenya problem. This is a Sierra Leone problem. What do you say to those people who ask, why would you push so hard for this to be a law or a crime in Virginia if we don't have an issue here?
You're wrong. It's not. It's not. I've heard people say to me, oh yes, that happens over in Africa. Yes, but it also happens here, right here in Virginia. I know that for a fact. So we needed the law. If we thought it was not happening here in Virginia, there would be no need for laws. No states would have state laws, and there would not be a federal law either.
Right. So what happens is perhaps, or I guess this is a question, so is it that we have these practices that maybe start in other regions of the world, but those practitioners come to the US
yes,
and want to continue those practices. So if there isn't a law against those practices, then that leaves young girls as victims.
Yes.
Because there's no punishment.
And nobody knows about it, because if there's no law, then they just do it and continue doing it.
Wow. And so the legislation that you worked on was HR 6100, Stop FGM Act of 2020.
Yes, in 2020, in 2021, we started working on it with Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee from Texas, and she became passionate about it, and we worked with her office in formulating the language to amend what HR 6100 is, an amendment to the original 1996 federal law against FGM. So we took that, and the inspiration to do that was in 2018, when in 2017, the feds busted a clinic in the middle of Michigan, in Detroit. A doctor, his wife, and another female doctor were performing FGM on multiple girls because Minnesota had a state law. Michigan didn't have a state law at the time. So they were busing these little girls from Ohio and from Minnesota and bringing them to Michigan and performing FGM on them, and somebody got a wind of it, and so the feds busted that clinic. I remember the day it was done, and then...
What year was that?
This was 2018.
Oh my gosh.
I'm sorry, 2017. So immediately the governor of Michigan pushed and got their law passed. It was the same year that we got our law passed in Virginia. Our criminal law passed in Virginia. Michigan got its law passed in Virginia, in Michigan, because of that case. So it was a federal case, and when the case went to court, by the time it got to court in 2018, the judge threw out the case. He said Congress didn't have the right to pass a law, because it was at the time when it happened, Michigan didn't have a state law. So they were going on the federal law. And the judge said, well, Congress doesn't have the right to pass a law like this. So he threw out the case, and these doctors went free. And we advocates against FGM were just appalled. So we wanted to do something about it, and Sheila Jackson Lee, Congresswoman, worked with us, and her office did, and we were able to get that law amended because there were loopholes in the original 1996 law when it was written, because people didn't know enough. Those people who wrote that law at the time didn't know enough about FGM. So we made sure we closed up all the loopholes that judge was able to throw it out for, and we made sure that everything was covered in that law, and that's what HR 6100 is, and it was passed into law in 2022.
Wow. How many states currently don't have an anti-FGM law?
9.
9 states.
9 states still don't have.
Gosh. Oh.
Washington State just became the 41st state this year.
Okay. I wonder if Texas and Florida are in that 9.
Yes. No. Texas and Florida have laws.
Okay. Well, that's refreshing when it comes to those 2 states. So, okay.
I know Alabama doesn't. Connecticut doesn't. I think Connecticut is the only state in the New England area that still doesn't have a law, but they have that. Advocates up there are working on that. I've been to Alabama and spoken several times to try to get their law. Their law is still pending.
Wow. When you think about the work that you've done when it comes to policy for this particular issue, and then you consider the war against women's bodies taking place right now in the courts, when it comes to reproductive rights, when it comes to a woman being able to make a decision on how a pregnancy is going to affect her life and her body, what comes to mind for you?
Well, I see the correlation somehow between the two, because it pertains to the woman's body, whether it's a girl, and I always think, well, when the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade after so many years, I wondered, well, what else is going to be overturned? And then I started to get concerned about all the work we are doing now to get these anti-FGM laws passed.
Absolutely. I'm sorry, I hate to cut you off. Please make sure you come back as we continue our conversation with Angela Peabody.
Caitlin, be serious. Now take the oath. Come on. I'm totally taking this seriously. Okay, I'm ready. You may begin. I pledge that I will never meet in person with anyone I first met online without checking with my parent or guardian. And furthermore, if my parent or guardian agrees to the meeting, it will be in a public place and my parent or guardian must come along. Do you pinky swear? I do.
When you teach your kids about internet safety, they'll pass it on. For more information, go to cableclicksmart.org.
Dare to load their minds. Dare to explore. Dare to STEM. Learn more at She Can STEM.
You're not the kind of guy that makes the girls all sigh.
2 for $3.
They never turn their heads and look when you walk by. 'Cause it's the little things.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. Helping.
What a nice young man.
Pass it on.
My goodness.
A message from the Foundation for a Better Life.
I better get out of here. Ooh.
Get it.
Get it. Get it.
Give your town a reason to celebrate Because every Goodwill item you bring home brings job training and more to your community. Goodwill, bring good home.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Thank you so much for coming back to Inside Scoop as we continue and finalize our conversation with Angela Peabody, the founder and executive director of the Global Women Peace Foundation. So when we left, we were talking about the policy work that you were doing through your organization and how you were able to get laws passed in Virginia and what happened in Michigan and how a law ended up being passed there. So let's get into future work. What can people do? Well, we are going to get into what folks can do to support your organization. But if people go to your website, they'll see your work as far as rehabilitation and prevention. Let's talk about, so there's support groups that people can connect with through your organization, but also vaginal restorative surgery, which is something that FA was talking about how it changed her life around. How does your organization sponsor those or support those?
Well, we don't get funding from the federal government or from state government to support the surgery. For some reason, they will support anything else but the surgery. So we depend on funds we raise during the course of the year from donors, from loyal donors, and we put on the Walk to End FGM every year, which in this year is going to be on September 30th. We'll talk about that more, but that's when we raise the most money to be able to send at least two women a year to have the restorative surgery.
Okay, so on September 30th, folks can participate in the Walk to End FGM.
Yes.
And those proceeds go to support this vaginal restorative surgery.
Yes.
How many women per year are experiencing FGM?
I can tell you, you can do the math, but I can tell you 8,000 girls every day around the world are being cut.
8,000 girls a day?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. And so are there any other organizations offering this surgery?
Not that I know of in the U.S. I think we're the only organization in the U.S. that offers the surgery, that raise money to sponsor the surgery, send the women to California to have it.
Wow.
As we did with FA, you heard her.
Yes. How many surgeries do you all do per year or per?
We can only afford two.
Two?
Yes. So we raise enough money to send two women to surgery. This year we've already sent one. She had her surgery on May 28th and she's doing very well. I've been in touch with her regularly to make sure that everything is fine and she's very happy. I hope her husband is happy as well. And
even if he's not, he'll be okay. But anyway.
And then our second woman is going on September 29th. She said, so that's why Dr. Bowers, who performs the surgery, will not be in Washington for the walk on the 30th because she will be performing the surgery the day before. The survivor said to me, well, that means I won't go to the walk. I said, well, you choose. Either you attend the walk or your surgery.
Right.
So she's been waiting a while too for the surgery. She was on the waiting list for a while. So she's really ecstatic about going for the surgery.
So your organization is at this point, only able to fund about 2 surgeries per year. Yes. How many requests do you all receive?
More than 5 a year.
Wow.
We have a waiting list currently of about 13 women. They are waiting. Some of them have been on the waiting list now for a couple of years.
My gosh. So with 8,000 young girls experiencing this across the world every day, why aren't more young girls or women requesting this surgery?
Mostly because they don't know about it. Some of them come to us for counseling, psychological counseling, and we tell them in the screening, we let them know the services we offer. and that we have this surgery, and some of them are very surprised.
Wow. So the walk on the 30th, is it specifically to fund this surgery? I imagine offering the counseling, taking these phone calls, getting the word out, having these seminars, I imagine that costs money.
Absolutely, it does, yes.
So do any of those funds from the walk fund this, or what else can
Yes.
people do to support?
I think FA mentioned that we have a psychologist assigned to the support group. So we give her a stipend, but most of her work with us is voluntarily done. And so we do need funding to support the support group. We are getting women coming to us once the word gets out that there is a support group. I think we were the only one for a long time in the US that had a support group exclusively for FGM survivors. And now there are others that are following suit and starting support groups specifically for that. But I think we are still the only one in the Washington, D.C. area.
Offering this specific service.
Yes.
I saw on your website that the average cost for this surgery is around $2,000.
Yes.
That seems so inexpensive. I'm going to get braces soon, everyone, and my braces are more expensive than this really important surgery. So why is the cost so low relatively?
Because the surgeon in San Francisco, Dr. Bowers, who does it, her service is pro bono. So the $2,000 covered anesthesia and just things in the facility. But it would be a lot more. It costs more than your braces if she were charging for her service.
Wow. What can doctors so if you all receive 5 requests per year on average, but at this point you're only able to support 2, what resources do you all need in order to be able to accommodate, if you could have a Christmas list to accommodate all of your 5 requests per year?
For more doctors to learn, and Dr. Bowers, I must give her credit, she travels the world. She's been to Australia training doctors there to do the surgery. She goes to Kenya, she trains doctors there, Burkina Faso in West Africa, Guinea, she does that. And she's told me recently that she's been training doctors here in the US as well.
Wow.
So we need more doctors to be able to perform the surgery, and we need funding.
Do you find that a lot of medical students and doctors and medical professionals are completely oblivious to this procedure?
Yes.
My gosh.
Yes. A lot of them are completely oblivious to FGM, period. Mm-hmm. Just the practice of FGM. One thing that we have been edging with the American Medical Association is to include the study of FGM in their curriculum, so that when young doctors come out of medical school, they will be knowledgeable about FGM. When they encounter a patient who has experienced it, they're not going to freak out.
Sure.
Because I know of stories where it happened.
Wow, where a woman perhaps goes to an OBGYN.
Yes.
Or is going to have a child, and there's this procedure, and the doctor sees her anatomy that's very, very different from the average woman.
Yes.
So it's probably secondary wounding that woman has to experience.
Yes, women who have experienced that told me one woman was in the stirrups, and the doctor came in. She had been infibulated, type 3, where she was stitched up. He had never seen anything like it, and he just paraded all of his interns in the room to glare at her. She said she felt violated all over.
Gosh, there's just so much education. I'm so glad that, excuse me, the senator that you were working with before he retired insisted on an education component for that. And oftentimes we think that the best service that we can do for citizens is to educate our young people. And that's absolutely important. But professionals need education as well.
Absolutely.
Gosh. Okay. What's maybe one of your best memories in the work that you've done in this field?
My best memory, one of them is when we put on the Walk to End FGM 10 years ago. My board took me to task, and they said they didn't want to put on a walk. And they said, if you can get 50 people to show up on that day, then we will do it every year. And I pounded the pavement, and I worked hard. And that morning, on a very blistery, cold morning, November 8th, 250 people showed up on the National Mall. And that was the birth of the Walk to End FGM. So that's one of my favorite moments.
That is tremendous. So again, before we close out, what can people do? Where can people go to find out more about the walk?
Please go to www.gwpfnd.org.
Okay, and then there's going to be something specific about the walk?
Yes, you will get, they will get t-shirts, free t-shirts. We will have Global Woman Awards given out that day. We're looking forward to, we'll have entertainment. We're looking forward to a really great event. So please come on the mall and join us. And we will walk as we chant. We'll walk to the Lincoln Memorial from the monument as we chant, "No More FGM."
That's going to be really great. What a wonderful experience and something great to be a part of. I cannot thank you enough for this interview, for this experience. Angela, thank you so much to you and for FA for coming out and having this discussion. With 46 seconds left, what's something that you want to leave our audience with, a thought?
Please just come to the walk, join us in the walk, and spread the word. Share what you've heard tonight with your neighbors. Let it be a discussion around the water cooler with your coworkers, because it's word of mouth. That's what helps.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us tonight on Inside Scoop. Please make sure you visit the website, visit Global Woman Peace Foundation, and please make sure you support the Walk to End Female Genital Mutilation on September 30th. Visit the website, sign up, sponsor someone. We'll see you next time. Have a great evening.